Good morning, everyone. My name is Aderonke Akinjobi. I'm a PhD student of John Wesley School of Leadership at Carolina University. I'm going to be presenting on a topic called Enhancing Women's Participation in Decision Making. And I'm going to be focusing on Nigeria, uh, that is a developing country in Africa. Gender inequality is said to have penetrated all aspects of Nigerian society. And among African women, Nigerian women participate in national legislation at about the lowest rate in Africa. Available data also indicates that in almost all Nigerian economy, there is a persistent wide disparity between males and women's work and income generation prospect. So there's an imbalance also in education among the gender, such that few women are empowered and participate in labor force, particularly in politics and in education. So women participation as a whole is about 11% compared to 30% for men. And since the existence of democracy, which is about 24 years, young women have been deterred from actively participating in politics by male-dominated violence and political party leadership. Looking at the data in Africa as a whole, Nigerian women participation is about 6% compared to other countries like Rwanda that has 48%, Senegal 46%, South Africa 45%, Kenya 28%, and Ghana 15%. So what are the barriers to women's participation in politics and public decision making? A study carried out by Orisha Dare in 2019 on the role of women group in women political participation and economic development in Nigeria identified the following barriers to women's participation in politics. First one, cultural and religious discrimination, low awareness of women group on national gender policy, and also lack of a political agenda by the women group. Also, most of the political meetings are held at night, which is difficult for a woman to attend in Nigeria because of societal expectation. Also, the women group identified violence as a limiting factor for women in participating in politics. A high level of illiteracy also is a common trait among majority of the women group. Also, existing laws that are unfavorable for civil servants, particularly women, to participate in leadership or in politics. So what are the benefits of women in politics and in public decision making in Nigeria? Firstly, equal representation of women in local government and decision making is important for fostering sustainable development and developing gender sensitive policies. Also, the exclusion of women in politics have been identified in recent time as a major setback for economic development. So the current IMF assessment recommends closing the gender gap to achieve economic growth in Nigeria. Women are also excellent candidates for leadership and public relations because of their traits of diligence, commitment, honesty, and patience. What are the strategies to overcome women barrier in decision making in Nigeria? Firstly, the government must be led by honest and purposeful leaders who are free from corruption, devoid of political, ethnic, and religious bias. Education and training is also important. The government must invest in education of the girl child. Also, women must be given equal opportunity to compete, and any act of discrimination against them must be stopped through the legal system. Advocacy is also important. Opinion leaders such as religious and traditional authorities should advocate for equal opportunities for female children. So this is a call to action for sustainable development and for Nigeria to be able to meet the sustainable development goals of 2030. There must be gender equality and access to quality education for all gender. The government should also investigate affirmative action and provide incentives and resources to support female students' higher education. Also, further study on gender, geography, and educational differences in Nigeria is recommended to ensure equal access and political involvement for women. Lastly, women leadership groups, the government, and interested parties should advocate for updated legislation that protects women and give economic power and reinforce affirmative actions in politics and decision making. So I'm going to be looking at current gaps in literature on the underrepresentation of women in decision making. So considering current research in this area, there are three research that I'll be considering. There is one by Ono and Endo, 2024, and this research is on the underrepresentation of women in political arena. Another one by Gode, 2019, which is a study on European government allocation of ministerial portfolio to male and female ministers. The third one is Kruber and Hoffman now, which is a 2022 study, and it covers 27 European countries. And this is an extensive analysis of gender inequality in ministerial selection and the time it takes for women to receive responsibility for highly prestigious portfolio. Considering all of this research, one takeaway from it is that all of this research confirm the existence of gender inequality in the ministerial selection process and suggest that party leaders must find it simpler to defend assigning women to traditionally male-dominated portfolio if they want more women to participate in politics. Another research that I will be looking at is a research carried out by Hinge and his colleagues in 2023. This study highlights gender differences in the workplace arising from inequitable treatment and outcomes. The research explains how gender inequality accumulates across the employee life cycle and are reinforced across multiple levels. That is the societal, organizational, interpersonal, and individual. It is suggested that the use of affirmative action, employment equity, and diversity initiative, as well as promoting positive diversity climate to improve women's representation in decision making. The gaps identified from all of these studies are as follows. One, the conditions under which women are appointed to ministerial positions are unknown. Two, the need to research gender inequality in developmental opportunities in male-dominated workplace. Three, they need to research gender inequality in performance evaluation in male-dominated workplaces. Fourth, and lastly, the impact of sexual harassment climate on gender inequality in the workplace. So I will be looking at the proposed research from the identified gap, and the proposed research is the impact of sexual harassment climate on gender inequality in the workplace. Looking at this proposed research, the following research questions will need to be answered. The first one is, does an intolerant sexual harassment climate lead to greater gender equity in the assessed performance of women? The second research question is, does an intolerant sexual harassment climate lead to greater gender equity in the promotion of women to leadership position? In conclusion, globally, women are becoming more prevalent in a variety of industries, but yet they are significantly underrepresented in politics and decision-making. Women also lack participation in politics because of obstacles that has challenged them so far, and barriers such as cultural, religious discrimination, low political awareness, high level of illiteracy, and unfavorable laws have been identified to limit women's representation in politics, especially in Nigeria. Gender inequality and intersectionality has also limited women's representation in decision-making roles in organizations. Therefore, there is a call to action for government, organizational leaders, and stakeholders to advocate for updated legislation that protects women and give them economic power and reinforce affirmative actions in politics and decision-making. Thank you. These are my references. Thank you for listening.